everybody. Good morning. Wish I could hear you right now. I'm going to move this out of the way. First off, in the comments, just type where you're at, where you're watching us from. Maybe you're in the living room. Maybe you're still sleeping. Maybe you're out of town. Love to see where you're at and how you're joining us today. I'm going to ask you a couple times throughout the message to join me in the comments. It helps to get other people interacting and not just kind of checking on the video and that's it. We're going to start this new series today, and we're going to continue it in the next few weeks, called Relationship Advice. And it's it's actually a continuation of the series we were doing in some ways, but this is all about relationships, not just family relationships, but any sort of relationship that you're in, and I believe this is going to help everyone. I'm going to start off today by creating some conflict. Our message today is called How to Handle Conflict, and I'm going to create a little bit of conflict, maybe in your heart today. I'm going to say this: peace is not the absence of conflict. Love requires us to step into hard conversations. We have to be okay with stepping into these hard conversations and being okay with doing things that are sometimes difficult to actually create peace. And so, for me personally, this is a hard conversation. I grew up in a family that did not deal with conflict in a healthy way. There would be sometimes some yelling, some shouting, some disagreements that were unhealthy, and they weren't followed up with anything. It was just like, did that happen or did I not see that? We never talked about it again. It was just gone. We never learned anything about it. We never talked through it. We avoided conflict. We had conflict. We avoided the conflict resolution, the reconciliation that's, I think, required after something like that happens. None of us are perfect, okay? We are going to mess up, but if we do not follow up with the conflict resolution, we're going to be in a big trouble. And so Jesus has a lot to say about this. I'm excited to talk about it. But so when I stepped into ministry and I was in Bible college, I was interning at a church, and I lived with the pastor's family. They were wonderful, great people, normal people, all of us, just like us. They had normal conversations. They were struggling. They had arguments and things like that. But I can remember a few times, I don't have any of the specifics, but where I said or did something that was out of line, nothing like major or anything like that, but they actually just took the time to sit down with me and have a conversation with me about what happened and talk through it. And I can tell you that I felt convicted not by the tone of their voice or by the way that they talked to me, but by the love in their heart and what they had to say and what Jesus had to say about some of the things they were talking about. They gave me grace, they gave me love, and it was tender, and the tone was great. Now, again, none of us are perfect. We're going to struggle with this, but we have to never give up on the ideal that Jesus gives us, and I want to talk about that in a little bit. So instead of ignoring that situation, though, they didn't snap at me, they didn't lecture me, they sat down and lovingly, gently talked to me about what happened. And so they talked to me, they talked through it with me, they took the time, which to me as a parent now at this point in my life, I can tell giving someone the time is sometimes the most difficult part of these conversations because we're all so busy in life. And so taking the time to do that is important. And so there is a godly way to handle conflict. We're going to be talking about a couple different topics today, conflict and resolutions. And so things like that are important. But God wants us to really pay attention to this because I believe that when we do this right, the world will see us doing things a godly way. And so I think that conflict is unavoidable. It doesn't matter who you are, where you live, the things we struggle with are very generally the same. We are going to have conflict in our lives. We're going to struggle with this. In our culture right now, this is what the culture will say to you when there is conflict. When something comes at you or someone does something to you, these are some of the things you'll hear. Don't let them get away with it. You'll feel better if you hit back. If you don't defend yourself, people will walk all over you. Cut them off. You don't owe them anything. if they hurt you, hurt them back. And those are cultural things. Those are not godly things. Those are not things that the Bible talks about. We're going to jump into that about what Jesus wants us to do. And so instead, revenge or retaliation does these three things when we do those things. It keeps the cycle of pain alive. Generation after generation after generation will struggle with the same exact things because we haven't decided that our family is not going to do this anymore. We are not going to be conflict avoidant. We're not going to be doing these things. We're going to walk in peace and love and help people when these situations come up. Yes, we do have to talk to people sometimes about the things that have happened. So we'll talk about that in a minute too. Maybe you've heard the quote, it's been said over and over again, hurt people, and they continue to hurt people, and they hurt more people, and more people, and more people. So if we allow the hurt that we have experienced, and a lot of times the reason we act this way and we do these things is because we've learned it from our family of origin, or we've been hurt in such a way that we've put up walls and blocks and things in our life that we then are tense around other people, and we struggle with these things. And so these are struggles, and so God wants us to become whole, and we'll talk about that in the Bible passage here in a minute. The second thing that this does is it hardens our hearts. Our hearts become hardened, and God actually relates to us through our heart. And so that's really, really important. One of the things that I wanted to bring up was gossip. Our hearts will become hardened when, let's say, something happens to me. Someone says something to me, and I take that to someone other than the person that hurt me, and I just talk. It's called venting sometimes. And actually, it's called gossip. And so when we gossip, that continues to harden the heart. You're building a case against that person, and now you're probably not going to go back to that person because you built this huge case, and there's no way. And actually, if you've ever had this happen before, there's a thing called secondhand hate. I can't remember the word I was looking for. Secondhand conflict, something like that. If I think of it later, I'll bring it up. But now you have this hate for that person, and then the other person actually has a more extreme hate for that person because they did something to their friend. And so this is really important. So I'm not going to go into Matthew 18 too much here, but you need to really look through the first part of Matthew 18 because Jesus gives us a very clear instruction on how to handle specific conflicts when someone hurts you or sins against you. And so I want you to challenge yourself. Next time something happens, make sure you walk that out. Walk through Matthew 18. There's been several times as a pastor even people will come to me and try to handle the conflict. And first I say, hey, actually, you're the one that needs to go first. You need to try this first. If you can't resolve it, then we can get other people involved. And so check that out. So the more we rehearse offense, the more we welcome bitterness into our heart, we're going to be tense, we're going to be struggling, we're going to have a harder time forgiving and then finding reconciliation. The other thing is, it reshapes us into someone we were never meant to be. So bitterness doesn't just affect how we treat the person who hurts us, it affects everyone that we are in relationship with. And so that bitterness will grow in your other relationships that you actually enjoy and love, they're going to struggle too. And so this is kind of the problem now. And so I want to jump into the solution. We know we're watching online, we've got kiddos all around in different situations, so this is not going to be a normal length sermon, but I do want to share with you some really important tips on what Jesus says about this situation. We go to the Bible for all of our answers in life. And so one thing you need to know, anytime that I've noticed so far, anything that Jesus brings up from the Old Testament and the Old Testament laws, he brings up and he actually intensifies these things. And so he brings up like adultery, and I'll go through this. And he says, well, it's not just the action, it's actually the heart of the matter. And so I'm going to go into that. Sin begins in the mind and then the heart, and before it becomes an action. And so in the Sermon on the Mount that we're kind of going through here in Matthew 5, anger in the heart is the seed that leads to murder. Lust in the imagination is the seed that leads to adultery. Degrading someone in your thoughts leads to damaging them in real life, and it actually damages you too. So it's not like we can't just, well, I filtered my thoughts, and I struggle with this, guys. Like sometimes thoughts just, boom. And those I'm continuing to release those to the Lord. But when we degrade someone in our thoughts or in our quiet space at home, and we just, whoever it is, TV, whatever, it's degrading us. It's degrading what God has said. How you think and imagine another person's value actually matters to God. So when we begin to degrade another person in our thoughts, in our imaginations, in our heart, it will eventually lead to the outward sin. And I'll even say this, the way you treat people physically or in your mind, they're both sin to Jesus. He's like, man, if you could get this, if you could give me your heart, if you could release your heart to me, I will do something just miraculous in your life. And he wants you to give it your heart. Yes, your actions are important, but the heart is where it starts. If your heart is not in the right spot, eventually these action sins will come out. Whether it's once a year, twice a year, or you know, whatever it looks like for you, like they are going to come out if we are not actively pursuing Jesus and having him heal our heart to wholeness. And so let's read Matthew 5:43 through 48. He says, "You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy." There's actually no law that says that, but we won't get into that in deep detail today. It's a little bit of a translation. "But I say, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven, for he gives his sunlight to both evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. If you love only those who love you, what reward is there for that? Even corrupt tax collectors do that much. If you are kind only to your friends, how are you different from anyone else? Even pagans do that. But you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." And so the translation for that word perfect actually would fit better if it said complete or whole. Jesus is wanting to bring completeness to your life. He's wanting to bring wholeness to your life. He wants to bring wholeness to you, to the people around you. Perfect is a rough word in our culture. Sometimes it's like, I've got to do everything right. No, it's wholeness in direct relationship. And so I want to say something pretty direct here. Some of you are not angry people. You're silent people. And your silence is not always maturity. It's fear dressed up as peace. And so some of us need to hear that. That is directly to myself. A lot of times in my life, when I think I'm being peaceful, I'm actually creating a lot of conflict in my own self. And if it's something that's building up that conflict in myself, I need to have a conversation about it with the person who needs to be talked to. So Jesus gives these three simple commands in that verb passage there. It's love your enemies. It's not about feelings. And actually, check this out. Loving your enemies. Nowhere does he say that we can't have enemies. Enemies happen. Even if we try our best. I'm the type of person, I would love it if I didn't have any enemies. But because we're followers of Jesus, it's going to be a natural reaction that some people will become our enemies. Second part, do good to those who hurt you. Try that on for size, my gosh. The natural response is to hit back, defend yourself, or shut down. Those are the responses that we have. But it says to do good, to bless instead of curse, to break the cycle. Fight against that cycle that maybe your family's created, maybe the struggles you've had, maybe the things that have happened to you. Fight against them. And then this is it right here. The third one, pray for them. Pray for them. If you want to break this cycle of hating people, pray for them. So this is where the heart change happens, because when you actively are pursuing good for the people who are against you, your heart will shift, because that's something God will be involved in. He's going to be involved in that. And so you give these people up to God. You don't necessarily have to have the best of relationships with every single person, but you can create love for every single person. So I think it's important to ask, why in the world does Jesus ask us to live this way? It seems so much easier if I can just go home at the end of the day and just sit in my chair and watch football and be bitter all day. Why? because he wants us to be like him. He wants us to be like him. And so he gives the sun and the rain to everyone, even those who don't deserve it. And guess what? That includes all of us. The only reason we deserve anything is because of something that Jesus did. We don't deserve what comes to us. And thankfully, that's true. We don't deserve the fact that we are not going to live in hell for eternity. He gave it to us, and so he wants us to shape our heart, because hate never heals anything. Hate in our heart does not heal anything. There could be people that have hate in their heart, and we may not even know it. But you can see it on their face. I've seen it on my face sometimes, that I have this just, and it's a healing that Jesus wants to do. He wants to heal us. He wants to bring us to wholeness, to completion, and he wants us to be in direct relationship with him. And because anyone can love the people who love them. It's so easy to love people we love. He wants us to take it a step further, to be able to love the enemies in our life. And so, again, Jesus ends this whole passage by saying, and I'm going to read it the way that, with the wholeness, but you are to be whole or complete, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. So being perfect is basically being whole in this context. He's not saying never fail, but he is saying we need to fight this head on when these things happen. I'm telling you, I'm getting better and better at this as I go in life. If I do something wrong, I cannot continue to let it just slide. I've got to be the one who creates the conflict resolution. But maybe not everybody around you is doing that, and so you have to be the one who takes the first step. And then if that does not go well, as Matthew 18 says, then you need to bring another person into the conversation with you. God gives us this model, and it helps us. And so we need to have these conversations with people so that we can bring completeness and wholeness to our life. And I'm telling you, this, when we do this right, relationships correctly, then I'm going to tell you, people outside the church, they don't have this. They just have gossip and bitterness, for the most part. And they will see this. And I believe this is one of the things that churches can shine on when our relationships are strong. We don't just ignore the fact that someone barked at me at church because they're having a bad day. I actually go up to them because I care about them, and I say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that hurt my feelings. And I know we're all like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm tough. Well, you're not. So let's be tough by actually having the conversation. Conflict becomes the place where God forms us in Christ. Wholeness is when your inner world and your outer actions finally line up. And Jesus wants to heal at the source, not just manage your symptoms. And I'm going to ask you this question. Ask yourself and allow your heart to receive this. Do you think that you may be following all of the rules and the laws, but your internal self is cracked and broken? Yes. I don't even know if I follow all the laws, but I feel the internal cracked and broken sometimes, and I need the healing that Jesus offers in that, and that's something I'm always looking for. And so, as a church, when we do this, we need to do it well so that the world can see us. And so what I want to challenge you with this week as we finish here, this week, I think your obedience to God looks like this. Start one conversation that you've been avoiding. Start that conversation this week. And I'm going to be more specific. Not a text, not a prayer request, and not just letting it go. Okay? Don't let it go. It's a conversation. And then here's some just quick boundaries in these conversations. No yelling. There's no such thing as winning, so take that out of your mind. There's no winning in these conversations. And there's no punishing. I'm not trying to punish anyone. It's just Jesus' truth plus love and courage. Boldness. Man, you're going to have a scared feeling. You're going to be energized. It's just going to be intense if this is the first time you've done it. The more you do it, it becomes a muscle and it becomes a strength in your life. And then you become a godly person. Someone that Jesus describes. That's my goal. I want to be more like him. And so, as we end here, I want you to know Jesus did not avoid these things. He had a conflict with sin. We had a conflict with sin. And he went and he took on that conflict. And if he would have avoided the cross, then we would have never been able to experience what it is that he wants our life to be. So a couple of things as we end today. If you need prayer right now, if you just generally need prayer, I would love for you just to comment in the comments saying pray for me or pray or something like that. You don't have to be specific. If you need more prayer, if you would like someone to reach out to you, you can just message me in the comments. If no one does, that's fine. But if you really feel like God needs to help you with something a little deeper right now, we'll take care of that and help you and walk you through that. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We are bummed that we can't be in person, but we will be next Sunday. Please, God. And we'll see you guys next Sunday. I'll pray. Father, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for the opportunity to have this technology and be able to do these things. And we just thank you so much for the opportunity to be close to you today.